to recommend that never happens again.
Yeah, the last time we used Galilee for a runoff was in 2014.
Okay.
And that was because you voted by precinct.
Okay,
Yeah.
that is
Prior to vote
a
centers.
mistake that we need to correct today.
And
It
I'm all
should never
for it.
be closed.
I'm all for to add more vote centers, but we have to have the staff to work the vote centers.
You have to have what?
Staff. We have to
Okay.
have staff to work.
Well, I'm retiring, and I will be.
I'm gonna put you on my list. You're number one on my list.
I
available
think
All
you just
right.
signed up.
because it means that much to me.
Yeah.
And I think I could find a few other volunteers. You know, I've worked that poll and never got paid. I've never said anything about it. But it just means that
Yes.
much to me that we have the service to the community. And I hope you all understand the concerns. And thank you both.
Judge, one more thing. First thing I want to do is just tell you thank you for your presentation that goes over everything that y'all do. And I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate what you do on behalf of the Commissioner's Court and for the citizens and voters in Brazos County. I wanted to tell you that I appreciate all of that. If you would not mind going back to, in your slide presentation, I think the slide previous to this one, yes. And I think most of, okay, so on primary and primary runoff elections, the early voting locations are established by the Commissioner's Court, and when we pass the resolution, that's what we accept for early voting. Okay, and then for primary or primary runoffs, the parties set the election day vote centers, correct?
Yes.
Okay, from what it says here, okay. I'm a little concerned because most of the comments that I heard from people who talked said that a voting location on the primary runoff or a couple of locations were not used, and it seemed to be that some of the indication was is that the Commissioner's Court or your office was a part of that decision making. But what I read here in your presentation, and I thank you once again for it, is the parties actually set the election day vote centers for a primary and for a primary runoff. That's correct?
Yes, sir, they do.
Okay.
But much like the Commissioner's Court, it was in conjunction with a recommendation from my office.
Okay.
That's
So,
what I think is important.
Was there any concern that you have or that you do have now on getting the appropriate input relative to primary and primary runoff elections from the parties as far as what the election day or what the election day vote centers should be? Is there a concern that we're not getting the information from the parties?
I think part of the issue this time was that also you had two brand new party chairs who had never run a primary, so they relied on what we told them, and I gave them the historical data of what we had used in the past.
Okay, and like I said, you have the two election day vote locations I heard concerns expressed about were Zion and not Arena Hall, Galilee Baptist.
And both have never been used in a runoff before.
Neither of those have been used since 2014 when we
May
went
I?
to vote centers for a primary runoff.
Commissioner,
Okay.
Commissioner, may I just input that New Zion was a new polling place because, and it had never been used before, but because Tabernacle on Waco Street was closed,
Yes. Because
I
of the
asked
question
that
as to
we
whether
get
it's
a
safety for
location
occupancy.
in the area, and New Zion was it. So it had never been used before. And that doesn't mean, because we haven't used it before, doesn't mean we can't. I think we have to. We make alliances where we need to. We are a living organism, and we're growing. As you said, we're urban now. We have to think outside the box, and we have to do not what is convenient for ourselves, but convenient for conspicuous.
I have no disagreement with that statement, that last statement that you made there. I don't. I just wanted to clarify from input that we've received as commissioners relative to primary and primary runoff
Yes.
elections and election day vote centers and how they are selected.
Yes,
So
you're
thank you.
correct.
Okay, why don't we move on to the public input? Ann Boney. Come on up. I guess you're first.
I think you were the first one that arrived.
Oh, okay. Okay, wow, I took a whole bunch of notes. I really did. So what do I do? Can I ask questions or do I just make comments?
Whatever.
Okay, so, and I think that Commissioner Carley and Aldrich has covered a lot of the things that I wanted to actually talk about because I was really interested in during the presentation. She said that, well, let me read down here, mail-in ballots. So Commissioner, I'm not at church, am I? Commissioner Carley already pointed that out, and I wanted to ask the question in the event of a national disaster or something. I had a mail-in ballot, doggone mail truck got blowed up, but you find out that those were some ballots in there. So because the 6th day after has passed, they cannot be considered. Is that true? I'm sorry?
Oh, per the election law, correct.
Okay, so,
But if there's a disaster, then they use the Senate advisory to us if there's some type of, oh, I'm sorry. So yes, per election law, that is correct. But if there is any type of disaster, just like the pandemic, they do send us advisories telling us how to handle any deadlines that disaster, pandemic, or anything that it could affect.
okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Another concern is that a lot of my people, be it African American, Latinos, or Browns, have a problem with them voting machines. And so I saw Marilyn Strada here. Yeah, at one time we had a workshop, and City Secretary came out and gave us a workshop on how to operate that voting machine. It's not this one that we voted on this last time. So sometimes those machines can be very intimidating for the people. So is it possible that we can have workshops, and I'm not talking about here in y'all commissioners court, but I'm talking about community workshops whereby we can be trained, they can bring out equipment so our people can learn how to actually use those voting machines.
So when we did purchase the voting machines, we did host a public, what was it? Demo. We had a whole week of it, I believe. A whole week of them. We had all the machines set up. We let them come in and vote. We just made a small little ballot. They went through the poll, went through the whole system. It was for a week at our office.
Ma'am?
We're happy, any group that contacts us, we're happy to set up a demo or, a presentation for people to be able to come in and vote on the machines. We're more than happy to do that. We just need to have those groups reach out to us and let us know when they can, how much equipment they can accommodate, and when we'll work with their schedule and our schedule.
All right, thank you. And I'm all over the place. So during the runoff elections, that primary runoff, there were 5 places that were selected for that runoff. I asked that Commissioner Aldrich said something about timing. How can timing is okay if we know in time? The problem with that Galilee being shut down, I had so many voters going over there to vote the day of the runoff to find that that place was not open. And again, I think Commissioner Carley made the scenario that now I spent my time going over there to vote. This place is closed. Nobody told me anything about it. I'm going back home. I'm not going to vote. And I think Commissioner Ford said something about that as well. When we talk about our sister Curtin and all those people out there, we have to make sure that we are doing our due diligence. And when I was here at the commissioners meeting on last Tuesday, I was really upset at my commissioners and my judge because I said, you should have done your due diligence to make sure that those places that they had selected were the places that was conducive for your voters. So I guess I need to apologize because you took your people at their word and you went along with what they said. So I do apologize for that. But I think that due diligence need to be done when we're doing the runoff and we're selecting these places. It would be my suggestion, and I made this suggestion on last Tuesday, that whatever those runoff places is going to be, that we have 5 and use those 5 over and over again. I don't have to worry about whether or not you did it a month ahead of time or a week ahead of time to shut it down. If we have 5 runoff locations, we ought to use those same 5 until we grow into 1 million people. Then we'll get, population. And the timing is of most importance to us because we need to get, you standing up telling me I got my time up.
But I didn't count your time when you were getting answers. If they were talking, I paused, so you clearly had the whole 4 minutes, just so you know.
Okay, well, you're talking my other 2 minutes. But anyway, we have to have enough time in order to get the word out. So if we are given the time that what's going on, if you make that decision and we get the information, then, and again, I know my time is up, but sometimes we don't have the resources to get the information out for the people to get the information. So our word of mouth has to be one of the things that we use. So I need that time. I'm going to my seat to make sure, going to my seat, that we have enough time to get it out. And that's the only way that we can actually do it, is we have to have the time in order to use the time to get it to the people. And yes, let us know what you need, I don't mean baby miss. Let us know what you need, and we'll work on trying to get some of those people to work those polls as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Pastor Sylvester Smith.
Thank you, Judge, and to the Commissioner Court. A lot of the concerns that I've had has pretty much been answered, but I am genuinely concerned because I took several people over to Galilee for the runoff and to discover that the polling site was closed and had no idea that it was closed. And then I asked them, did they want me to take them other places, and they said no. And so that was 2 people that wanted to vote and decided they did not want to go anywhere else. My concern is when we close down places that they have been accustomed going to, it discouraged them and make them become despondent. I would hope that that Trudy and her staff would do a better job of making sure that the polling site that people are accustomed to going to will stay open. I also heard that she stated that it was her decision that she made and brought to you all. And Galilee is one of those polling sites where there is a lot of people that shows up to go to vote. And I would hope that we just do a better job not to discourage people. We want people to go and vote. They need to exercise the prayer. We teach that, and we preach that, we encourage that at the church. And then when you take people and the polling site is closed, then it's almost like you saying something and they're not believing what you're saying now because the polling site is closed. And I want to thank both for Commissioner Aldridge and Commissioner Ford for what you said, because I totally agree with you. We need to make things accommodated for the people to be able to go out and vote. And I will hope we would do that. And Judge and Commissioner, I hope we would strongly consider that. Thank you all for your time. I know Trudy and them got a tough job, but you got some people who really wants to exercise their right to vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eleanor Vasselli.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that's probably Bill's. Eleanor Vasali, Republican Party County Chair. I do have one question. from Crystal or Trudy, if you can please remind us what for this November will be the date, or how many days before will this type of information be out for people to have the opportunity to review and comment? Rough estimate?
90 days.
90 days.
Yes,
Okay.
we will meet with the parties, and we'll talk about all of that.
Okay. And that at the 90 day, yes, for November?
For November, the county sets those locations. But yes, we'll start working on the ballot like 90 days out. So when we start working on the ballot, we have to know those locations, so.
Okay. So those locations will be set 90 days out, and that information will be out for people to be aware, share.
So when they set the locations, I then have to contact the locations.
Okay, got
And
it.
they have to give me the okay for us to hold an election in their place. Some of my places are dropping, a lot of my churches are dropping because they're doing construction, and just some places don't want us in there anymore. So that becomes a problem as well when I find locations. So that's why some have changed, some have closed, and when a location does drop, we contact, before we've contacted the commissioner over where that location sits in to help us find a place feasible for us to use. So.
Okay. So thank you for the information. I know we've had a lot of people come up concerned. We as party chairs and volunteers in the party work hard. I'm not saying I'm taking names, but 90 days out, we're going to check and see if y'all are there to help us out, because we try very hard to get volunteers. It needs to be a group effort. Often the representatives, commissioners, are the direct line to the people you represent. And if we're having a hard time getting information out or reaching people, staff is having a hard time, then your representative should be the person you go to get the correct information. It has been a crazy election year with new laws. A lot of the questions that were asked here, just to clarify, I know Crystal and Trudy reiterated it, it's not decisions that they make in their office. It's decisions that they come down to them and they are told that this is how you proceed with a provisional ballot, a mail-in ballot, etc. So I want to make sure that that's clarified, because I don't think that was heard enough for those who aren't familiar with the process. So we need volunteers, and I always talk about my experience running for council in College Station. I remember I was going to speak with everybody during my election season, and I went and visited the gentlemen who were working utilities, and I walked in and they said, you know, Ms. Vasali, when you turn that light switch on, how often do you expect the lights to come on? And I laughed because I knew where they were going, right? We turn the switch and we expect the light. And just as in voting day, residents and registered voters just expect to walk in, have people working, and their vote to be available. So I think we need to thank those who do show up and volunteer and work those hours. And again, just like the working class or the people that are representative, that's the difficulty in finding volunteers. People work. We love to help out and volunteer. So sometimes we do rely on our retired community to come out and help, and we're very appreciative. But I hope we can all work together to fill those volunteer spots, because it's important, and I'm sure the commission, as they're going to be reviewing the budget, will review those issues. I think you need to look at voting numbers at the locations, times and opening, flexibility, and November is going to be crazy as well, and there's no room for mistakes. So I think working together, we can do it right. So thank you to the staff, and thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Davis.
My name's Bob Davis. I've worked elections since 2010 in this county. And what I'd like to do is just give you a little history of what's going on. We now have 25 super polling places. It used to be you had to go to your polling place. That's no longer in account. There are 13 polling places in Bryan, 12 in College Station. I have an itty bitty map. that if it goes across the county, 74% of the vote is in the southern part of the county. 26% is in the upper part. In our, we've been limited by closing schools. I know they have problems finding places to go to vote. Our history as far as voting in Bryan versus College Station, I do statistics, that's kind of my deal, is that outside of Brazos Center in the admin building, or this building, depending on which one we're using in an election, Bryan is the bottom of people coming into a polling place. And usually 600 votes is high, and it goes down from there. So all our Bryan locations don't have voters showing up. We have an average of about 1,500 in the whole College Station. And if the county has a problem, it's probably that it needs more voting locations in the south part of the county. We have to have 6 judges at every location. And so in Bryan, we're having 6 judges that we pay the same amount to do 500 votes, that we're paying 6 judges in the south part of the county to work the whole 12 hours. And that's a long day. You have any questions for me? I'm good. That's it.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks for the job you do.
Judy Leonis?
Hi, I'm Judy Lee Eunice. I live in Brazos County. Thank you, Judge, for responding to me so quickly and giving me information about this. We are looking at 5 elected officials. I have also run for office before. Imagine we're all nervous on the day of the election, actually the whole dang year. And imagine your voters going to vote that you've talked to, you've sat in their homes, you've gone to their churches, you've done all this, and they get there and they can't vote for you. Now, many of us will go find some place to vote, and we would definitely, as candidates, hope people would crawl to go vote for us. But that isn't what happens. Y'all know me, y'all know I'm a groupie. I go around, and I'm also representing the State Democratic Party right now. I'm an elected official. I have 11 counties that I deal with. And I love going around. I love Election Day more than Super Bowl, everything but my wiener dog races, I'll just tell you. And so I love going and visiting. I know all of y'all. I know almost everybody in here. I just love Election Day. I'm just a freak like that. But when I went to Galilee, which actually I've heard over and over and over and over, that's where my people vote. Well, I'm one of your people. I'm one of your people. And there are many, many people in here who are white who vote there. Because we don't want that closed. And we've gone to you before about Tabernacle, and we raised Cain about that being closed, because we don't want to disenfranchise voters. I don't think the Republicans do either, but we cannot. So, Commissioner Ford, thank you for your opening comments. This is also a very stressful year for many candidates because of redistricting. And that changes everybody's little cones all around. And speaking of cones, I appreciate everything you do. I went to look over at, what is it, the Bryan Ballroom. You could get in there, and I know I'm old, but I had to really think about it, because it's not an area that I go to all the time, except for every election day, I go over there. But Galilee, I stood outside for an hour with 2 candidates I do not endorse before the primary. I wait till it's over. And I stood with them, and I watched at least 40 people leave. I got madder and madder, of course, because I'm seeing maybe Democrats leaving, maybe Republicans, it doesn't matter. I taught in school about voting, and all my little 5th graders couldn't wait to vote. I left went over and talked to Trudy, who's familiar with me, and I said, who made this decision? She told me the 2 county chairs. And I said, well, you know what's happening? Everybody's saying we all know what that means. They don't want us to vote. The city of Bryan doesn't want us to vote, which they have nothing to do with this. Or they'll say, which breaks my heart, is, well, our vote doesn't matter anyway, because we all want our votes to matter. So when Trudy told me the 2 chairs made the decision with her input, is the way it was worded to me, I, of course, y'all know me, I called the chairs. They said that isn't the way it happened. So there's been a lot of misinformation here. She's used to me calling her out when there are issues. That's no problem. I want people to vote. I want people to feel comfortable about voting, and I really don't care. Whichever party or whichever candidates turn out their people, that's who's going to win. I don't think it's fair just to cause people to mistrust elections, which I got 8 calls immediately the next day. They don't want us to vote. You know, they're blaming Bryan. Y'all didn't get blamed as much as you probably should have for rubber stamping. But we've changed. We have people, we had really old people. I learned from Ann Boney. We had really old people that walked to vote. Tabernacle happened with that all the time. And they are not going to leave. I will tell you, we offered to drive people to vote. They didn't. I left and went over to talk to her. I followed 10 black faces in cars. Okay, 10 black faces in cars, not one of them went to the election administration office to vote. So thank you all for your time. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you. Mike Sutherland.
Thank you, Judge, Commissioners. I don't know if I want to talk now after all that. But the problem is, I think we're looking in the wrong direction. It's not Trudy's deal. She operates it for you. You make the decisions. Y'all approved everything. You approve the money. You approve everything. You make the rules. You don't have to be asking about how to do stuff. You write it down and pass it. They got to do it, and you check on it. So let me get back. So we're looking in the wrong direction as far as I'm concerned, because the election system is complicated, it's labor-intensive, and very fragile. However, that doesn't make any difference, because people have to vote. This society and our country is based on everybody voting. And I hope you can see from this election that one vote matters. It doesn't matter if you're in the south of the county or you're in the north of the county, how much it costs to operate the voting place. That's what y'all put the money up for. Operate them all, so that there's no chance of the guy that's going to break that tie, wherever it is going to be left out, or that woman's going to be left out. Don't do that. Set it up so there's no way to fail it. And the one thing in the discussion I think y'all are missing is that the primary and the runoff things are different rules. They're not the same rules. The primary elections or general elections are 2 weeks early voting. The runoff is 1 week. And they have 5 places to vote, and I think y'all approve the places to vote in the early voting, don't you?
Yes.
No? Okay. So it's not the chairs or any party. It's you guys. Y'all make the final decision, whatever it is. And so those rules need to be made the same so that we're consistent. So you don't have to worry about what's open, what's closed, or how to get there. Then you're going to have y'all need to pass some new rules. You need to have somebody that goes around and check the polling places to make sure they can get in there. You know, the traffic changes all the time. All the time. So as far as I'm concerned, the most important thing that you do, other than the police and fire, is make sure people can vote. Make sure everybody that wants to vote can vote, and they don't have to be driven somewhere else or walk somewhere else, that they can go to the place they've been used to voting and vote. Now, the rules are complicated, and that's part of the problem, and that's what I think y'all need to work on clearly. Because we're talking about, well, this was open last time, that was closed last time, but I went through and checked what was open and what was closed in general elections, and what I found was, on the general election in November, there were 24 polling places. I may have miscounted, it might have been 25. Anyway, and then in the primary, there was 25 places. And in the special election, there was 5. And in the runoff, there was 5. Now, the runoff is very critical because it's hard to get people out to vote, and the vote can be very, very slim, very, very slim margin. So it seems to me if you got 25 in general, you ought to have 50 in the runoff to make sure people are encouraged to get out there and vote. And the problem is there's many ways to skew the results of election, and one is keep people out of the polls. And that's kind of what it looks like. You're keeping people out of the polls, and that skews the election the way you want it to be. So I highly recommend that all the polling places be funded. I mean, that's the most important thing. You know, there's a lot of decisions you make about what to fund. There can't be any more important decision than that. And the low turnout on these elections probably are due to the limited polling places. And so when you look at where they are, each voter has to be treated the same. One guy can't walk 10 miles or the other guy 2 miles or whatever. It's got to be the same because you want to encourage everybody to get there and have that chance to vote. Let's see. And I guess this would have never come to light if the runoff elections hadn't been so close. They were close in those two, especially commissioners. They were very, very close. And so people started saying, why is that? And that's when these issues started coming up. And I appreciate what y'all brought out today, and I appreciate all the work y'all have done, but I think the money is the problem. I think you've got to have enough money in the system to make it work. Everything works like that with money. And so if we hadn't had the elections, maybe one vote different or 4 votes different, we wouldn't be talking about this. Thank you very much. I hope you can solve this problem.
Thank you, Mike. Amy Alg. Is Amy Alg here? Algie? Okay. Wanda Watson.
Good noon, judges, and commissioners, I'm sorry. Pretty much everything has been said. I will again reiterate what I said last Tuesday, and actually Mike pretty much said the same thing. As I was hearing this, I recognize general elections are different than runoffs and the primary, in that the number of polling sites are limited. And so the miscommunication about the county chairs, I'm speaking for Amy, county chairs selecting the polling sites, there's a little bit of nuance there in that, kind of like you all, they were given a list of the polling sites and they are new, so they would not have known necessarily the importance of Galilee being sacrosanct for precinct 4 especially. And so maybe they got the list, they filled it up, they got the election judges, but they didn't understand that the ballroom was a little different, access to the ballroom, and I can personally speak to that. I hear what Crystal said about where those cones were and what was closed. I actually went over there the day before the election, not being familiar with that area. I saw myself and other people driving through a convenience store to get to the actual ballroom parking because we weren't familiar. Because of the circle, it looked like everything was closed. So again, I think that needs to be taken into consideration. You make an assumption that only the people who are from an area vote in that area, but if you close sites, people may have to come from a different community where they're not familiar. And so I think that there needs to be clarification of why this has become an issue, that general elections usually are broader automatically. Primaries the primary itself is broader. Runoff elections are very limited. Special elections are very limited. And the impact of that can have a major impact on the outcome of the election. And you never want to disenfranchise voters because the outcome can be significant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it? I'd like to
That's the last.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone who came to participate, and I certainly concur. We want to count every vote. We want to make it convenient and easy for every voter to have access to the polls, and Galilee will be open for sure. And
thank you all for showing up.
yeah, thank you.
And you're welcome to visit the Commissioner's Court every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. I've said this for a lifetime, it feels like. But I'm so happy to see you present and concerned, and I invite you back. We need to hear your voices and see your faces.
Yeah, and I want to thank
I saw
Trudy and Crystal, too.
Silas, did you want to speak? I saw you.
Yeah, can I say something real quick?
Sure.
Give your name and address.
Oh, name and address?
Social Security number, credit card.
Yeah.
I'm Silas Garrett. I live out in Precinct 2, out in the Curtin area. Now, I am one of the voters that creature habit. I go to Arena Hall every time. But I did run for the election earlier this year, so I got to visit with some of the constituents in Precinct 2. Now, southern part of the county, man, that's a beautiful spot. A lot of young kids. They're driving, going everywhere. The northern part of the county, I'm not a young chicken anymore. I don't like driving long ways. I like going places that are a little closer. I did get some phone calls asking me why Zion was not open. I told them, I said, well, it's just not a spot that primary runoffs vote. You've got to go to Arena Hall. They were just aggravated. Well, I'm not going to vote. Well, no, you got to go vote. You know what I'm saying? You have to make your voice heard. So my suggestion, I own a little local business here in town. I tell my employees all the time, we don't have problems, we got to make solutions. To make a solution, we should always have somewhere in the outskirts of the county, Zion, Smetana even, you know what I'm saying? That's in Precinct 4, Milliken, available to people that are creature of habits like myself that don't want to travel longer distances than a couple of miles or wherever you want to go. But anyway, that's my 2 cents that I wanted to put in. I appreciate everything that our Commissioners Court's done, all the commissioners and the judge. Y'all worked hard. I know this is kind of a new situation for everybody, a new nuance, but getting the word out to people that they need volunteers in the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the Green Party. I look for things because I ran for office earlier, information about the county, about the elections, about everything that's going on, even in the city. It's hard to find unless you're digging for it, unless you dig down into something. It needs to be more readily available and easier access. I'm a one-click guy on the computer. If I can't find it in that one click, I move on to the next one that's a little easier. So, but anyway, there's my 2 cents. I appreciate all your time and everything that Trudy's done. Y'all did a great job. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Silas. And now that you are semi-retired, I'm sure elections will be calling you where they need some folks to work the polls. All right.
Judge, I'd just like to say I concur with what our citizens told us today. And the thing that keeps coming to mind, particularly about that Galilee Church location, is I'm sure there are people that walk to that location that can't walk downtown.
Right.
And we've got that situation all over the county. I actually liked Mr. Sutherland's idea is let's open these polling locations up and get the numbers up where they should be. So.
Okay.
One thing, Judge.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say for everybody, brazosvotes.org. Okay? That's where all the information for every election is posted. I'm getting some people who are indicating that it's not. Okay. That brazosvotes.org is a location to go to that discloses all the polling locations for every election in advance of the election. Also has sample ballots for all and every one of the elections. So I would just encourage people who are looking for, it may take more than one click, but it's good information and it is accessible through public access as well as if you have your own computer.
I must say, Commissioner, I must say that everybody is not computer savvy. I've said this so many times. Many people don't have a computer. So we're going to have to find ways to communicate with one another that's out of the box. Again, in my community, take it to the local church. take it to the local organizations. But even with that, it doesn't work if you went door to door. So we've got to do better. And I think you all have put us on notice, and we will do better. Thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you everybody for coming. Great discussion. We're going to